this little bit of stuff going here just a second. Oh. Alrighty. A little bit of goodness there. So, if y'all didn't watch it already, Nick had an awesome podcast with DeAndre and Aaron. They've been on several times, so it was a good talk. Fun times. Always good to have the gang there. First off, a little bit of apologies for not being able to make it last week. So, had some loss with a friend's family, and we basically, we just needed to spend some time and hang out together. So, apologies for that. And yeah, otherwise, we'll kind of be going over what I had planned for Thursday, and then a little bit of extra stuff that got brought up today on this channel and different things like that. What's going on? Glad to see you in the chat. Yeah, go ahead, fire away for any kind of questions. I'll do my best to kind of coordinate between the two screens and all that. But yeah, a little bit today, we're going to have, I don't know, some more wild and out there thoughts that that I just basically have on a daily basis. Kind of diving into mirrors a little bit and how we perceive them as a duality in things, but that'll kind of be a little bit. And then what I like to call the deepening of the well. Basically, what I mean by that is a sense where this awakening is really just surfacing, and how deep that well has been and where we've gone. Another thing I like to talk is the inevitable night and darkness before the dawn. I'll get into that in a little bit as well. So we had a little quick question here. Started off with all right, so to kind of start with that, I wouldn't consider anything I do in this platform just adherent to truths in the whole matter, that I just wish to convey perspective. Now, the question was for someone ruled by the moon. I don't think anyone is actually ruled by the moon. I do believe in lunar contingencies. I'll get into that. That's part of actually today's talk, like my moonscape and the place within outer space. Um, yes, within, yeah, all right. So, my truth, so my perspective, my idea about that is the, our lunar body is something that is old and technically more ancient than our Earth. There was times when we had no knowledge of the moon in older Aboriginal cultures. Um, Even in ancient Chinese texts, there's been allusions to a time before the moon. I want to say that the moon and Earth are really almost sisters, as it would. In Sumerian texts, which would be the cuneiform tablets, like what we are probably most commonly referred to in any type of literature would be the Tales of Gilgamesh. That was initially a cuneiform tablet. That would have been in the same text that Sumerian knowledge and history would have been conveyed. And they talk about a time when the moon itself was a extraterrestrial body that came from the shattering of Tiamat. Now, Tiamat was supposedly the planet in between Mars and Jupiter. Or, yeah. So, don't let me say the wrong thing on the planets. I might have a lapse in memory there. But I know it. So, basically, where we get this huge asteroid belt between Mars and the exterior planets. It is kind of emblematical of a huge planetary eruption. Now, in the Sumerian tellings, Tiamat was the that planet, and from its destruction birthed creation of Ki. Now, the Sumerians called Earth Ki. And in my line of thinking with this, Earth would not be our physical first home. And Earth might not actually be what we think it is now, to be honest. So when we have these ideas that surround that lunar body, what I really think it is a I don't want to really say reflection. I don't want to say a hologram, which these are things that have been kind of theorized different times. I would really put it as a lesser piece of Tiamat, just like we supposedly Earth is of Tiamat. And that kind of goes along with my thinking that the Mariana Trench is really just a scar. I mean, if we look at the formation in biblical texts, it was the waters of the earth and the waters of the heavens brought together. Now, in just a small kind of connection, let's look at, I believe it's Pratchett who wrote about the Discworld, and take that image. So just the Discworld itself, that would be basically Earth. Now the elephants and the big turtle kind of make that almost like a weird looking destructed piece of greater planet. So from the theorized size of Tiamat, Earth that we have been told the size of everything and how it is shaped, that would have been maybe like a third of this greater planet. And if it was fully destroyed, what would be left over would be mostly that asteroid belt that we have now. I'm thinking a smaller piece would be that moon. However, there's a different idea that the moon is entirely extraterrestrial from this whole solar system, and it would have been the first vessel sister to Planet X or Nibiru or other things that were shown to be so-called extraterrestrial within this solar system. All right, so kind of back to the whole idea. Tiamat is like a seven-headed dragon. Dragons in their nature are reptilian, draconian. So to think of it in a different aspect, there would be seven draconian archons, and they would be over that whole lineage of aliens, right? So you have the Alpha Draconians and I can't remember the other names. So, anyways, the moon would be their figurehead because after they put the idea of the moon being omnipresent to the functions of the earth, that in itself would start feeding their truths in a way. We know, in a sense, that there are bases. The moon itself is hollow. There on the so-called dark side would be this highly functioning extraterrestrial technology. And the only reason why I say extraterrestrial is the fact that it is not of this earth. Terrestrial, terra is another word for earth. So in that same sense, though, I don't consider earth really terrestrial. I look at everything that we see in the sky and what we see on this plane, just that this is a plane of existence. And it is within this plane because it is so far descended from our original output that things work differently here. All right, so this is kind of getting into a wild and out tangent that I had for tonight. I've talked about it before with the dimensional frequencies and different dimensional planes in which we coincide. Now, we are perceiving a world in three-dimensional space, but we cannot physically touch the third dimension. We see a plane of 2D, and our brain pieces together the third dimension. Much like we cannot actually see the fourth dimension because what our brain perceives, yet we can see kind of the shadow or the after image of it. And that would be like the bird's eye view. So you have a line, two lines, and then a stacked pair of those lines, turn them sideways, and you have an upside view and an outside view. That would be your fourth dimension. So in a way, I believe the moon is an outer dimensional body that is functioning on a three-dimensional space. And the reason why it's hollow would be almost the same as saying it was like a stargate. Now we know there's many stargates here on Earth, but they're controlled by little little tongue whisperers. That's what I'm gonna call them, so we don't get a little uh-oh. The ones on Earth are controlled. So in a sense, why wouldn't that one and the ones up there be controlled? So yes, to you, Taylor Moon, I would say it is controlled, and not by who we would like it to be controlled. Taking that a little step further, these controllers, we've heard about them many times from many different avenues. They are doing their best to operate and control the outcome of third to fifth dimensional space. When I say that, what I'm particularly meaning is that we ourselves are creatures empowered by fifth dimensional space. And when I say that, I mean like our thoughts, our patterns, our ideas. We are in control of that five dimension. And then we perceive lower dimensions. And that's kind of one of the bigger aspects of many of my conversations is our minds are powerful entities within themselves. And I don't mean to say entity as like the bad that we get from that. I'm more meaning like how we operate. You gotta, and this kind of gets back around to my whole thoughts towards the eighth dimension, and it's been called the Akashic Records, the Halls of Amenti. And what I really think, and I'm starting to theorize now, is that is our place of origin in more than one aspect. Basically, we are created in an image of God, right? God made man, so man becomes God. I feel like we did. And once we did, there was a massive amount of division between all other life and all other beings and entities. Why were things created in a lesser form allowed to ascend to one of the highest forms? And through this division, there was a significant interdimensional rift. So, to kind of take it to a movie aspect, I talk about Doctor Strange a good bit. Now, let's just cast our minds into that mirror dimension that they have, and how he was looking deep into it, and all of a sudden, the dark dimension or whatever came through and made its face known. Picture that happening in the halls of Amenti and or in the Akashic record. Like when he opens up one of those books, evil comes out. Okay. Now this would be the rift. There it is quite significant. So we are back down to the third dimension, where that rift is more like magnetic tension and somewhat akin to the toroidal energy of all living things. And where those spirals meet, like I've said before, is almost like a black hole. We, as the beings that we are, the power that we've been given, the purpose behind our human existence is to realize that we're connected to below and above in all manners of the words and senses. And the purpose that we've been given is to fix that rift. The reason why is because we were made in a lesser version of the greater beings, and we slowly rose to the occasion. And once presented with praise, so to speak, it caused issues. Not saying it was our fault, not saying, I mean, just, and this kind of gets into the line of emotion being transdimensional. In a way, I believe it is. Just like love is timeless. It crosses huge bounds of everything, really. I mean, a true, like that Christ consciousness is love in the purest form. It's unconditional. Like we've heard these things many times, and that gets me on the idea that a lot of these concepts have been misconstrued and almost forsaken in society today because it's called the NAA. NAA is those that were upset over the praise, and we were put forth to do marvelous things. So one second. Getting offered snacks. So, all right. Yeah, so we have been agreed with that. So it's wild in there. So we've been put out to kind of shape a more harmonious levels of that Christ-like consciousness. And so Christos is the first name it was brought about. This was all engineered from that eighth and higher dimensions, to be honest, because that crystalline structure of light is what put forth all these different layers of reality, I would say. And when we when we've gone forth into these transdimensional states, there's been a little bit of a gap in the knowledge and the spirit and in a kind of wholehearted sense of things, if you were. And what I've seen now over the past maybe 2,000 years or so is a slow drip to sever this connection to that divine spark, to that God presence. And what's really wild to me is this has all been engineered by these negative personas from different dimensions. And it's almost like a cruel play on words when we talk about aliens or things of that sort, because what are we technically? Like that we're beings that came from a higher place. We are functioning at a higher place than what we perceive. And we fool ourselves to think that the mundane aspects of this life are all that we have. And then we've been indoctrinated to placate to societal goals, to material possessions. And the reason why we're on this material plane is to function as a material stitch to that rift. And I see what y'all saying in the chat. I like it. It's good stuff. Y'all are there. So kind of round it back off to what I was saying a minute ago. I'm sorry. Y'all know I like to ramble, so keep me on track if you can. Yeah, I'll get into that in just a second, Eric. When we are confronted by the realization of what we're looking at, say like a mirror, like pondering of mirrors. What I mean by that is not taking mirror journeys or any kind of type of magical presence within them, or think of it really kind of like the movies have portrayed that mirror dimension. It is almost as if we've been cast into that, and we are living a life that is resemblant of where we're supposed to be. And really, we're on the flip side. And I just saw in the chat, third eye. That's what's up. I like it. I like what you're doing there. All right, so this whole mirror scheme, it is a facet of the greater crystalline structure. Like, picture I've said it a few times, picture like this perfect diamond, how it's been cut, formed. It's that kind of spirit, not spherical, but tetra. I'm letting my brain become mush. Like a tesseract, but shaped into a diamond figure. It is cut to have all kinds of multifaceted nature. And if you shine light through that, it's going to emit in thousands of different arrays. The reason why I'm talking about this and why it's important is because we forget that we are of that diamond and we're constantly seeking a diamond. And this is kind of a metaphor, so I know it's weird and convoluted and I speak in riddles sometimes. And that kind of moves me towards the deepening of the well. What I mean by that is we have been, like I said, we're slow dripped into thinking that the diamond is a possession and something to be idolized or coveted, in that it is a priceless gem when we ourselves are that priceless gem. You kind of see where I'm going with this. All right, within us is that God spark. Within us is that Christ consciousness, and it comes from a crystalline space. There was chaos, and from that chaos was thought. And from that thought, time had to be made. And in this thought, it became multifaceted in all kinds of perspectives in nature. That formed this diamond, this crystal. And when it started to pass into when it's passed into lower frequencies, lower vibrations, it starts to manifest in its own accord. And in those manifestations, they start to become more personal. And once it's become more personal, the personalities actually form. And I mean, it goes lower and lower and lower until we have what we consider what we are, a a brain within a skull that experiences things. And it's not that we're the soul experiencing human form. That soul comes from that highest being, God. All right, so I'm getting a little kind of redundant there. Quick question. Do you think humans would respond differently away from triggered responses from the mirroring aspects if they knew karma was clearing, or are we so addicted to trauma? We've been indoctrinated to be addicted to trauma or to be focused on trauma, I would say. I wouldn't say it's quite the addiction unless someone is not able to break free from a specific trauma. Then it becomes an addiction because you're always either seeking that trauma or one to outweigh it. And what I mean by that is I'm not belittling any kind of trauma either. There's massive amounts of just hurt in the world right now. There is a silver lining to that, though, because through much of the trauma and the implicated trauma of what we've had going on recently, it allows for introspective and soul cleansing. With that, there is much hurt circulating. However, I feel, I know, I see vibrational frequencies, the ley lines, everything is changing. And what I mean by changing is realizing. And that realization is that, oh shit, we are better than what we think we are. That is the beauty of it. That is the deepening of the well. What I mean is that we are constantly focused on trying to maintain treading water. We are in that visage that, oh, we have to stay afloat. I say dive deeper. I say when we seek a purpose, purpose becomes prevalent. Now, to talk on a little bit of duality, our duality is been falsified. Actually, it is not a thing that is cosmic, if you will. That is something that has been formed to help us navigate the third and fourth dimensional rifts. like I said, like this started as being praised for creation and ascension. That allowed for a negative frequency. That allowed for chaos to be reintroduced into the order of things. Like if there was chaos, there was the void, and then there was everything else from that. Once the chaos was reintroduced, it allowed for a manipulative change throughout all levels of this frequency. Take away our bodies, what are we? There's many answers to that question. It depends on your belief. You could be your mind, you could be your soul. My answer, you are light because we come from that light. Your thought, because thought is eternal. Light and thought, Lionheart's got it, is manifested energy. And it is through these three things that allows our consciousness to perceive what we do. Now, that also kind of gets me on a little segue of we are stuck on that perception. We are stuck on symbolism. We're stuck on ideology. Why is thought eternal? Because thought started everything. And time technically is non existent, but without time, you would not have thought, you would not have action. We perpetuate ourselves in a cause and effect cycle. That has to delineate there is time. However, in all these things, all right, I'll get to that next question in a second. In all these things, we placate to that idea that we are subject to those perceptions and to that time and to that cause and effect. Now, spiritual gains, what's up, brother? You came in. Are we all the same consciousness, or are we conscious of gods of gods? Both. The reason why I say both is when we are looking for that introspective idea of things, and we start to go deeper, which is higher, and that gets back to the deepening of the well. We are surface tension at the moment. What happens when you break that surface tension? It's all mixed in. So with that, we come from the first consciousness. Now that gets on a wild tangent as well, bro. What of our conscious? What of our thought? I like the next question as well, Philip. So when we have a thought, is it of our consciousness or the consciousness that came before? Is that thought that is forgotten still conscious? Or is it perpetuated in its own reality? That gets me into like the fourth and fifth dimensional area. We come from the conscious of God. From that is multiple consciousnesses. From those consciousnesses, each builds their own until we here in this third dimensional space is each our own consciousness. Now, the funny thing with consciousness and thought, it comes, I really believe, from the fifth dimension, which would be the endless possibility of all actions. That would be the bubble verse, as it's kind of, yes, he said it just then. Thanks, chap. So once we recognize our purpose in all our lives, do we become angelic and can stay in the endless ocean, or can we then come back to help others be aware? Yes. All right. So once you perceive from this higher dimensions, you start to realize that it is in us to fix our own predicaments. So back to like the thought and consciousness. Well, the way I see it is our fourth dimensional space is time, and space and time is intermingled. Well, that is only because we perceive things in this third dimensional. Where does that perception come from? But our thoughts, and our thoughts come from our consciousness, both sub and active. So, placing that higher, where's that consciousness? I would say that is the fifth dimension. Now, sixth dimensional beings would be these extraterrestrials that we hear a lot about, the Arturians, the Alpha Draconians, the Palladians. Why can't we see many of those? Because they are more often than not shown as physical light, like the Palladians. They are light beings. The Arturians were the first quotations, the first physical beings. Their consciousness was that of logical, scientific, mathematical knowledge. And see, this is what kind of helped form us. The light beings, the Palladians, were that spiritual connection, that basically direct link back to that eighth dimensional conscious that is almost omnipresent. That's that Akashic record. You know, you find your book on life, all your past lives, all that good stuff. We can get in there in a minute. But the Palladian would be that light being of the sixth dimension. The Arturian would be that kind of that left brain. Or yeah. All right, so think of it as the hemispheres of the brain. The Arturian would be the left brain. You're kind of logical, you're thinking, you're the mind that is fixated on solving the puzzle. Palladium would be that right brain, that instinctual Christ-like consciousness where there is love, and it's not just fight or flight. That is somewhere in the middle. So, like, you know, when we have this survivalist need, that's something that's been inseminated into our thinking, into our social structure, because of countless wars. And the reason why we have these wars is because these higher beings that were on the bad guy side see to it. Before all this, it was this huge realization that we are part of everything and all. And then we had aliens come down and start talking to us and fucking with our vibes and shit. Now, part of it was experimental. Like, how can we ascend these humans into basically higher form, but keep them where they are? And that's kind of what made the rift in a way. So kind of pushing forward to that the inevitable night and the darkness before the dawn. What I really mean by that is we have to come to terms with what we perceive as duality, the shadow in the psyche, or the dark side of our mind, the dark night of the soul. These are stepping stones. Now it gets me into the course of ego death. That is something that is needed in conjunction with the dark night of the soul for these steps to be taken. Now, we are in this huge and glorious shift. And what I mean by glorious is that y'all said it many times, with all this stuff going on, it is actually placated to the goodness within our soul. And that's what I really want to get on. I don't want to be harping on all these big negative things going on. There is so much goodness, like just almost this holy sense of reconciliation between ourselves and the greater good. Now, the greater good, that term, I don't really like it because that has been used, and I say used because it is used by both sides of this so-called war. And we've known this for a long time. Everybody that's on this channel or been part of Nick's fam with the good lines, it is a spiritual warfare. Spiritual because our spirit resides in a higher place. This is something that started in like the 8th dimension. Okay, that is that halls of Amenti. That is the Akashic record. That is that omniscient presence. There's many things there. Okay, there's beings that we could not even come to terms with if they made themselves present here. They wouldn't be able to make themselves present here. See, this is where I get into there's a little bit of really awesomeness to why and our purpose, because we're able to transverse from that higher place to this lower place and back and forth. That is that praise, that is that gift that has been given. Everything has its place, and we were given that knowledge of the connection. And through this connection, we're able to go. All right, so the ability to astral travel from a third dimensional space is unheard of before we were around. I mean, we've been around for a lot longer than what has been perceived. Like it's before the first ice age and all that good stuff. I mean, that's a whole nother episode. So our potential is endless because it has been made that way. All right. Like when we want to break down spiritual text, when we want to break down the biblical knowledge, when we want to break down pathways to enlightenment, they're all the same thing, right? All right, so the reason why I'm kind of leading in with all of this is that inevitable night and darkness before the dawn is that look where civilization was back towards like Atlantis. Even though the Atlanteans were a experiment to basically propel us to our most magnificent form while still staying in this form. I know that makes weirdness, but all right. So just try to wrap that around a little bit of a donut and take a bite. Um, we are already in that place, but the tamperings have started since Atlantis to make us forget that. And what I mean by that is like the ancient Greek gods, the Egyptian gods, all these things are stories made myth of what we used to be before and during that experiment. And then it got talked about because after that, something went wrong, right? Like we regressed to what we were before all that. I mean, like we could perceive the fourth dimensional time in Atlantean times. We could basically construct fifth dimensional technologies. And so when we have regressed to this third dimensional perspective, that was itself an experiment too. Like, how deep can we go into this well? How deep can we perceive the lesser dimensions from this higher self? And we're stuck on basically the ideas that we have in life now. So moving forward in that kind of train, the best way I can say it is we are it. Okay, we're it. We're what we wish us to be. We are that higher self. Like when we start to talk about getting that message from our higher self, you are. You're it. You are exactly where you're supposed to be. And I'm not saying necessarily like it takes trial and error or it takes massive tribulation. Yes, the trauma, the pain, all this stuff will kind of show that mirror. Oh, there's a better way. But let's start to kind of tell ourselves, oh, we're looking in a mirror. We're looking at us. We're not looking at the better version. We're not looking at the higher self trying to be. We're looking at us. We are that higher self. And it's not a matter of getting there, it's not a matter of ascending, it's the realization that we're there. And we've projected ourselves into a lower space. Now, that lower space has plenty of little pleasantries that we've gotten stuck on. The whole idea that I'm trying to convey, I feel like I know I'm rambling, but I feel like I'm getting redundant because when we have these realizations, it allows for almost a scornful introspective. What I mean is that we have that duh moment. And the purpose of being here starts to not, I'm not going to say not matter, but like it becomes finite in that we have chosen this. Like we have allowed ourselves to manifest in this third dimension. And in that manifestation creates our purpose. And when we realign with that previous form before the manifestation, purpose in itself becomes much more transcendent than living a good life, being a good person, having that empathy. All these are tools that help that higher place, that higher mind. And with the tools that have been given, it's like they've stripped us of the knowledge of these tools. Like, oh, here's a hammer, you bang on things. Okay, and is that it? Or like we forget that okay, like we look at things in a two-dimensional space. So like this is that. Well, what's beyond this? That's what I kind of want you to. This is the perspective I want you to kind of try to take is a tool in of itself may have only one function, but that's just because we deem that so. When we start to utilize tools outside of their nature, aka us, outside of societal culture that has indoctrinated a certain human nature, we're able to bend. Now, this gets me on a side tangent with healing the body. It's been shown, been talked about, been written about, all kinds of different things like that, that we have this massive capacity within our minds to heal our own body. I mean, from wild things. I mean, we can break down cancer within ourselves, we can fix our spine. I mean, just, and if the individual mind is not strong enough to utilize those tools, a collective mind can boost that power. This gets me into that thing what I mentioned a minute ago, the ley lines and electromagnetic field. So what Tesla basically did when he started and built this worldwide web of electricity, he was tapping into ley lines and the toroidal energy of the earth. And he told us the keys were 3, 6, and 9. Now, 3 is a. You're right, Lionheart. So three has been indoctrinated to be all kinds of different things, and it's also been manipulated to pull from the truth of the matter. So 3, the Trinity, the thing that holds our idea of religious knowledge. That's closer than what we think. 3 is really the key to those higher doors. and that would be mind, body, and soul. Those three, those are all represented in one visage, in one facet of that greater consciousness. And in each of those lies a massive amount of potential. We have thus since poisoned our body, allowed our mind to be manipulated, and severed our soul connection. And through this false idea of whatever, it has allowed a greater introspective to reconnect all three of those. And that is the keys to helping in this ascension. And like I said, I don't mean ascension by rising up. I mean ascension by waking up and realizing that we're there. And we are the manifestations of our fifth dimensional conscious mind. And it is in our soul that that conscious connection is made. Now, another way to really kind of say all this is when we pray, we know there's power in prayer. I mean, this is stone cold facts. There's power in prayer. When we talk to God, when we reignite that connection, there's this warmth, this vibrational good juju going on. We're believed to think that it's only in those moments that we can make that. Why? Why do we believe that? We are that connection. We are that higher vibrational, just soul lifting fire. When we only seek it in moments of distress or after trauma or in painful memories, we do, it's like we use this as an antidote to the poisons of our reality. Why don't we do this all the time? Why don't we realize that we are that? And that's what I'm meaning is this whole ascension thing is the realization that we're there, that we are that really good feeling of love and light and peace and that inner fire that burns in our soul to that greater good. That I'm not saying the greater good that's been used, we got to do this for the greater good. We have to, that is words that have been dribbled over adding chocolate to the poison, basically. Like, that's sugarcoating things. That's not what I mean. I mean in that greater sense of awe. Like, I want you to take a moment and think back to a place, a thing, whatever, that really instilled just a massive sense of awe. And awe, like, where words can't express. It is more than a feeling. It's like the sense of knowing. And in that moment, you bridge the gap. Now, Lionheart, I agree. It's not getting to this point in enlightenment. Enlightenment is a tool. It is a idea of what to do. Then you got it. How we choose. It's not getting to enlightenment, or it's not having enlightenment. It's what we choose dictates what we enlighten. That is that fifth dimensional conscious that we reside in, is the manifestation in all the parallels of this choice. And that gets me back to that idea of mirrors. If you've ever been to a hall of mirrors, or not necessarily a hall of mirrors, or just walked between two mirrors and stood there, it almost seems as if it's going on and on. In that sense of on and infinity within a feedback loop almost, that is choice. That is the physical representation of choice. And your choice in, say, that moment makes every single one of those real. And it is in this endless reality that we function. And from the Alright, so I'm gonna leave it kind of right there for a second. Small bit of a musing from the other day before I planned on coming on, kind of talks about this. So I apologize for my terrible reading again, but here we go. "'Tis a wondrous and marvelous notion of purpose that we humans have designed, interwoven as if Mother Nature's own has come forth from tiny minds. If it were but that simple in the mundane words that such hath formed, it is but a nuisance in the greater states from which transcend time. Who are you to wonder? Who are you that dare strikes out in anger? Whether pawn or keen, within thy scheme yet fell the coming of the board. Unto thee I do beseech, such deems the drastic correction with thy direction. The rift between us is great, yet these tribulations are not our fate. Within you and I are the frantic alibi to the ever question, why? For stories untold and legend lacks, our predicament has swayed its tax. Now ye thus become myths that evil's machinations hath undone. While thou lay in slumber, felt surrounded by fate blunder, let ye mine travel to far off yonder, to the prayed for hacks. When the place reach has that which you seek, what then will you do? And that, in my mind, is kind of an ode to we seek greater potential. We seek enlightenment. We seek that connection. We seek God. What happens when we realize we're there? What do we do with ourselves? What happens when we realize that our aspects, within the reality that we perceive and the realities that have been manifested throughout the eons and all from this point. What do we do? We are of a mentality that seeks to solve puzzles. We have been indoctrinated for that left brain, for that mathematical, logical thinking. There has to be purpose to what our reality is. And that purpose is us. That purpose is not losing that connection. That purpose is reigniting that right brain. And meeting in the middle. And that's your pineal gland. The reason why the Egyptians really focused on that is because it fuses the middle. It allows you to have a construct built and maintained, but knowing that the construct in itself is as useless as the building. Why do we build these things? Why do we allow ourselves to be repetitious in the puzzles? On that right side, that connection, that further bonding allows you to realize there is no puzzle. We're not here to wonder why. We're here to help. We're here to uphold our aspect of things. Our purpose is to fix what came before. And fix, I think, is the wrong word. Our purpose is to learn, to heal. It is within us to reconnect to that divine spark, to that godly given divinity. And in that connection, we can heal wounds. We can expel forth so much loving, grace, righteous fury that allows for us to be better. My question to that little comment is, what is a new world? How would we create it? When I really feel like when we start focusing on a tunneled aspect, like what's going on in society today, that is itself in the manipulation to keep us from the bigger purpose. Like I said, excuse me, there's that rift from on high. You know, in religious texts, it's the split in the heavens. It's the revolt of the angels. in our time, in our reality, that would be the that would be the battle between the fourth and the fifth. The yes, we are here to protect nature and to nurture, heal, and love. We have to love ourselves before we are capable of selflessly giving love unconditionally. Missy Mouse, you are correct. That is what we're here for. And protecting nature, that's not only Earth, it is the nature of ourselves, the nature of the grander conscious. Because when we look to that eighth dimensional rift, that in itself is like an omniscient conscious. And when we look forth to how to nurture that, it is becoming that greater potential within us. And it doesn't necessarily take enlightenment, it doesn't necessarily take trauma, overcoming pain, or what have you. It is a journey, and it is accepting that journey. Now, can the journey be remade or done over? Sure, you come to a crossroads, and then your choice is left, right, straight, forward, up, down, whatever. And it's in our choosings that allows for us more learning. Spiritual Gain says he believes it is our choice to be in this time for a reason. This is why the awakening happened. The souls that have been many, and we have the strength to deal with what is going on and going to happen. I totally agree. We are Megan Harrison. Yes, I love what you just said. I think somehow we choose things we think we can handle before we come to this world. That's why I'm saying we come from this eighth dimensional space, this realm. That's that Akashic record. It is the knowing of what is to come. Time doesn't work like it does in higher dimensions. It is faster. It is all kinds of things. Yes, having strong connections with animals is important too, because animals are living creatures. All living things come from consciousness. All right, so when we choose our timing, when we choose how we're going to be here, some of us have been here before. Some of us have chosen to stay. I believe that, yes, we have chosen this time because we knew what is to happen and what we must do. Boom. I love it. I love it, Gaines. And a big thing that we're missing in this time and age is nurturing that inner child. The reason why I say that, what is a child other than a pure form of consciousness, expressing itself in exploration and learning. When we start to let the material world, this three-dimensional space, affect how we learn, how we grow, starts to pull us away from that child mind, from that child consciousness. We should all let a little kid survive into our adulthood. I mean, I know y'all know it. You see folks that are just almost like they've been in a bathtub too long. They pruned up and there's no soulful life left to them. They let their inner child go. Think back. I mean, and those of us that have children, isn't it a beautiful thing to watch them grow? Isn't it amazing? The mentality of a child? What is this? What is that? It is that awe and that inspiration, that exploration that we start to lose. And when we begin to reconnect, or if we've never lost that connection, we start to become more intuitive to these higher spaces. And I totally agree. That has been one of the big societal missteps. Our education has prevented such growth. And beforehand, education was a realm in which allowed you to think. It allowed you to explore thought. It left you to your own devices. General education, in a sense, was early on and completed early on. Once you had basics of going ons in this life, you were generally educated. And it was up to you to further that education or not. And this was happened in like teenage years. Once at the cusp of reaching development and furthering that development, it was up to you. Now we are in boxes. And the only thing that is explored is what is put in those boxes. It severs that curiosity. Yes, games has got it. And the greatest thing about this whole period right now, what I really think many of us have chosen for this, is to reignite that curiosity for those that are about to be coming into this world. The reason why I say that is someone asked a minute ago, can I talk about the age of Pisces? I would love to. It's ending and in its transition, or technically it ended and it's through the transitioning period. And every transitioning period, we have a new cycle of star seeds and light workers. I'm going to allude to two different biblical stories, Moses and Jesus. The Pharaoh, during the time of Moses, had a prophecy given to him that it would be a child of the Jewish people that would overthrow him and bring down his empire. So he killed off basically all babies that were born during that time. When in actuality he ended up raising the very child that brought him down. It ended up bringing was the downfall of his own son, but I mean, we know that story. Same thing in Jesus' time. As he came, he was born at the cusp of the Piscean age. There's a lot of reasons why we have the fish sign or all that good stuff. So I'm not really gonna get into that too much. However, the same thing happened. King Herod was killing off babies during that time because he was told that a child would be the son of God and bring on a new age. I mean, all right, so what is happening right now? What's been happening over the last few decades? Taking our children, especially right now, there's a huge. It's become an industry, which is so sad. So there's this new age coming. We're at the fruition of the Piscean age, which brought on the Christ-like consciousness. The reason why is Pisces is at the end of the zodiac, right? So the cool thing about our cosmic clock, the Mayans kind of had it right. Everybody was like, "Oh, they're freaking out about 2012." Well, 2012 stopped, right? It didn't stop. It just goes on in the opposite direction. So we have the Piscean age. Now it's going back to the Aquarius age, or age of Aquarius. The cosmic loop, it's resetting. So we are, like, at the end of this year is going to be this huge cosmic wormhole, basically, where a lot of this will make more sense. That's what I'm saying. Like, I know I'm talking riddles and stuff, but just start tuning in to your inner self. The deepening of the well is the well of knowledge within you. The pondering of mirrors is where we start to see the infinity of us and everything else, and that is that breaking of the veil. You are putting the dates out there. I'm not going to say if it's that date or not, but I really do feel like it's coming up. There's this massive shift in the frequencies and the energies. The ley lines themselves are changing. Gaines, Missy, love y'all. I'm so happy you can be here. Sorry, y'all. So, like, yes. Oh man, Megan Harrison coming in with some awesome stuff. School, time zones, and bells were meant to make us comfortable for factory work, moving around bells and changing subjects. I love it. All right. So, kind of going back into the chat just a minute ago, I remember seeing a question. was kind of like that. Mm-mm-mm. Remember the question. Uh, 1 second, folks. I'm looking. So, well, I just saw a spiritual gains thing. What if some of us were or are ET but had the choice to be human? Yes is the answer. We all come from that higher place. That's what I'm saying. We choose this life. That kind of goes back to a movie like Mr. Nobody. You see, like, from we're birthed from innocence, right? So you're on that's that sixth dimensional plane, that light being, that plane, that dimension of light, innocence, and love. That's what plants the choice, which comes down to the fifth dimension. We see the possibilities from that space. We see the end game of what the fifth dimensional holds. Then we choose that, and from that we trans these we come across, we transcend, yeah. So we go through and we are birthed to this third dimensional space. So like we jump 3 dimensions. That's because the not the climax of the spiritual war, but the rift is not so big here. That has been the agenda of the negative personas, the bad entities of that omnipresence. So the duality kind of starts in that eighth dimensional space, the good and the bad of everything. That causes this huge rift, and it started with all that from earlier. So when we still can't find the question from earlier that I wanted to address. Sorry, y'all. Mm. Oh yes, I mean we are meant for much more. That's what I'm saying. It's not a negative thing. It's like we are so much better than what we think. We come from a better place. We are connected to that better place. It's just been washed over with this materialistic idea of things that allows for us to be broken away from that. I know I just like totally jumped tangents. I can't find the question that kind of spurred a thought with that, but if it comes back to me, I promise I'll go back around. Blood types. Honestly, I don't really have too much of an answer to that, other than it functions for a materialistic purpose, and that we know of a lot of the negative things going on. Blood has a lot to do with that. Now, that gets me in a cool, different tangent. We've been programmed to believe we are less than what we are. Small side tangent with the whole blood thing. In our blood lies those keys to the greater light. What we have to do is not necessarily just tap into our soul, tap into our mind, expand our consciousness. The mind body soul connection, what I mean by body is not, having this grand physique or I mean, that helps. Nurturing and having the proper diet and all that stuff, that helps, right? Because we've been given a lot of stuff that prevents us. Well, I mean, fifth house, not so much. Well, sorry, on the side tangent again. We just when there are things that we can't see, and when we do see them, I won't say that it's not frightening. I would also say that it helps that sense of knowing. It starts adding more pieces to the so-called puzzle we're trying to fix or trying to make. Back to blood. The keys to this knowledge are in our blood. That is that logical mind. There's a method to the madness. There's a geometric structure to our universe. Well, that's because we perceive the universe on this three-dimensional plane. So start picking apart yourself in a physical sense. Same. So in our blood, we have cells. Within those cells is a life of its own, all the way down to the DNA. And in our DNA holds the structure and the potential that's within. And it's all manifested through our blood, and our blood circulates through our body and makes us who we are. When we start learning the secrets that are within us, that's what I'm saying. Like the deepening of the well is you diving deeper into yourself. This means on a chemistry level, a physical level, a mental level, a spiritual level, all these things. They're tools. Utilize each one. It's been given. That's what I get back to. All this stuff, knowledge, wisdom, whatever potential, all of it, it has been given to us. It is ours. It is, I'm not gonna say easily attainable, but it's in our hands. Like, like right here, it's we literally hold the world in our hands. And a lot of times we choose to drop it and go about wandering. I mean, I'm not saying it's not good to wander. We need to sometimes. That's part of that curiosity. To wander, to wonder, and connect the two. We perpetuate this idea that we must be given information in our senses, by our senses, for it to be true. Truth comes from within. Like, what we believe is true is based on our beliefs, our perception, our reality in which we see things, right? Surface truth, which I would accustom to what our senses tell us, is arbitrary. Greater truth, which is our deductive mind, what we can piece together from what our senses tell us, I would take it a step further. There's this inner truth. That's that intuition. That's that soul. That's that spiritual connection. You take all of these because all of these are the same tools. They are what we utilize to transverse this realm. Um, yeah, I'll kind of leave it at that for just a second. I know I've gone on a lot of tangents. I've rambled. Y'all help me, get me back on train. Give me some ideas. We give our rights away through contract law and trust law, and the GOP trap. But you're right. We are born with unmutable rights. This is true. What we've been dictated as rights and law is a manifested manipulation. And it's been really perfected over a long time. When we came here, when we chose this, we came and chose as a creator. That creation is what makes our reality. That is the choice. That in itself lets us transcend so much that we get muddled down and forget. I'm not saying that laws aren't just. I'm not saying that. There are unjust laws. There's just laws. But that is a perpetuation of this duality that we've been forced to digest. I mean, we've been forced fed so many concepts over human existence for tens of thousands of years, and it has come to fruition that we accept it. We are perfectly okay with being fed bullshit and calling it a steak. I would say the only just law is cosmic law. What I mean by that is, in this plane is the geometric constants, the physical constants, the spiritual constants. What is constant in this reality is law. Otherwise, it is arbitrary ideology. It is very much so a double-edged sword. Willful ignorance is a choice, yes. With that thought, that double-edged sword, we have to reteach ourselves how to use it. And I don't mean use like in abusing or manipulating or anything like that. What I mean is realizing what the sword is. Realizing that is not a means of power. Through our creation, from creation, is power. It is that connection, that divinity. You know, it's the things that we've lost, and the biggest is spirit. You know, especially in the Western mind, it has become a sign of social obscurity. It is a more of a thought of fancy instead of truth. It is yes, indeed. And that's what I'm saying. I don't want to harp on that, the negative side of things. I really just want to put forth this love, light, and peace that resides in all of us. That's where we come from. That is our creation. Is that love, light, and peace? That innocence. That spark of divinity that manifests itself in our consciousness, in our soul, and living through our body. I know I've rambled a lot. I'm not even really sure if I got across everything that I wished. This was one of those more just rambling thoughts and ideas of the day. Um, Honestly, I don't even know if they've made sense. It's it has its place though. We are so much greater. We are so much more than we imagine ourselves to be. I'm going to end this with a meditation, but it's not going to be as what we've normally done. Like I said, I don't have answers. I don't have all the pieces to the puzzle. I have perspective, and it is mine. And I can only share that. I can only give what has been given, so to speak. Biggest thing I want anyone to take from me is not teachings, it's just thought. Challenging our thoughts, challenging the way we think, challenging how we see what's around us, our perspectives in general. Yeah, that's about it. I mean, with that in mind, I'll just take a deep breath. Just let's release tensions that we've built up. And as we release, ground ourselves in something that's calm. A little bit, Brandon, not too much. Yep. And for tonight, there is no agenda. There is no purpose. There's no seeking. I want you to really just be present. Conscious breathing, exterior thought, wholesome in this place. When I say that, really just, like I've said before, the only essential thing we have to do is breathe. So take a moment, a few deep breaths. Clear your space, clear your presence, clear your mind. In previous meditations, I wanted to take you on journeys. I wanted to lift your veil. I've sought to impose a purpose. Tonight, I would rather just allow us to be present in our breath, in ourself, and in the peace that resides. When we are seeking a purpose, we sometimes lose sight of it. We sometimes forget where we are. So, right now, a few breaths. And being whole in here. I want you to allow whatever thoughts, whatever feelings, allow them to be passive, flowing as a stream, as fleeting as the wind. Let your soul's light reconnect to that of the higher conscious. Let that light come in from above, from below, from in front, from behind. And as we are present, we are that light. And all we're doing is breathing. Calm, conscious, relaxed breaths. And as we're breathing, know that each breath is a connection to all other breaths. That a conscious breath is a choice that spans infinity. And as we're conscious of this breath, we are so too conscious of that infinity. Allow your breathing yourself to become that infinity. We're just present, surrounded by this light, embraced in our soul, and conscious in our breathing. It is here that we reconnect. It is here that answers can be given. It is here that questions can be asked without worry, without anticipation, without gain. It is also here that we are whole, that we are true, it is here that we find that love within ourselves, for ourselves. Bask in that beauty, that light that comes from within and without. That sensation of awe. It's inside you. It's inside me. It's inside our earth. It is through this that we connect to that higher consciousness. It is a marvelous thing where we are, what we're doing. And all we're doing is breathing. Being present, being here, being connected. Feel that soul. Let yourself be felt. Without purpose, we come to this place. Purpose is sought. It is also given. We're here without and within. All we're doing is breathing. Breathing this moment. And letting that breath be in all moments. While we're here, let that love, let that light, let that peace become a boon, rejuvenating you, lifting you, giving you that realization that you're right here in all things. That is the majesty of that divine spark. It's right here. It is within. And it is shown without in all things. And that is our connection. It is beautiful. All we're doing is breathing. And with each slow breath, deep and full, allow yourself to come back. Come back fresh. Come back lighter. Come back with the presence that breath made. One last deep breath to fill yourself with that love, that light, that peace. And we're here in all of that glory. I love y'all. Love, light, and peace I send to you. I want you to stay blessed, because we are. Stay grounded, stay uplifted by all of this. And I will catch you next time. Peace, love, and light to every single one of you. I really appreciate you being here. And I hope we can all reconnect. I know we can. Until next time, stay blessed. Much love.